I'm going to show you guys how to pass your driving road test first time. My name is Mandeep Burmi. I'm the owner of Ace Driving School in Winnipeg, Manitoba. I'm going to share with you my secrets on how to pass your driving road test the first time, no critical errors. So stay tuned. There are a lot of videos on YouTube on how to pass your driving road test, but people still fail. Why? Because they don't follow the process. Let me tell you, everything that we do in our lives, we go through a process, and driving is no different. I'm going to give you this process, and if you follow the process, you will pass your driving road test first time easily. If you follow my process, there will be no general errors and there will be no critical errors in your driving test, and you will pass with a big smile on your face. As you're driving towards this parked car, you will ask yourself, what are the general errors and critical errors going around a parked car? Then you answer based on your knowledge and your past experience. So general errors will be if you don't signal and if you don't shoulder check. That will be general error. What are the critical errors? If you're going too close to a parked car, that's a critical error. So in order to pass your driving test the first time, we will signal left, and we will also do left shoulder check, and we will also maintain at least 3 to 4 feet distance from the parked car so we don't get any critical error. In this situation here, we also see this oncoming traffic. There is a white car coming from the front. If I signal right now, then it's misleading because this driver might think that I'm turning left onto this side street here. So that means I have to wait, and when I'm halfway through the intersection, that's when I signal and shoulder check. So now I signal left, I shoulder check, and then I go in the left lane, maintaining my distance from the parked car. After that car, I pull back to my side. Now I see a stop sign coming up, so I ask myself again, what are the general errors and critical errors here? Now the general errors will be, let's say your examiner asks you to turn left. If you don't put the signal on, that's a general error. And if your signal is wrong, instead of putting left signal on, if you give right signal, that will be a general error. What about the position of the car? If you're turning left, then you should stay closer to the center of the street within 3 feet. If you're more than 3 feet, that will be a general error. It could be a critical error as well, depends on the situation. What are the other critical errors as we are approaching this intersection? The other critical error could be your speed. Now your speed depends on the road condition and the weather condition. If you're taking your driving test in winter and the roads are slippery, then you always have to adjust your speed according to the road condition. So now we are ready to make a full stop here. Then you ask yourself, where do I stop? The first thing you look for is the stop line. If you don't see a stop line, then you look for sidewalk, and if you see a sidewalk, then you stop before the sidewalk. Now what are the critical errors and the general errors here? The critical errors will be if you don't make a full stop, that will be a critical error. Now it's a 4-way stop sign and we are turning left. The other critical errors could be, let's say if somebody else came before you and you are trying to go first before them, that will be a critical error, because if they came before you, then they get the right of way. The other critical error could be you came before other car but you are letting them go first. Now that will be a critical error as well. So here we make a full stop before the sidewalk, and looks like this white car here actually came before us, so we're gonna let them go first. So they are already moving and we're gonna start moving as well. Now what about the speed? When you're turning left, your speed should be between 15 and 20 kilometers. Now what about the lane? After the left turns, we will imagine a yellow line in the middle of the street, and we will stay closer to the yellow line on the right side of the yellow line. We are going straight here. What about the speed? If you don't see a speed limit sign, that means in Manitoba the speed limit is 50 kilometers. Now what are the general errors and critical errors here? If you go over the speed limit, that will be a critical error. And if you're driving too slow without any reason in 50 zone, if you're driving at let's say 25 kilometers or 30 kilometers, that will be a critical error. Now what about the general error? If you're let's say in 50 zone, if you're doing about 39 or 38 kilometers, that will be a general error if the road is empty and the weather and the road condition is good. So here we see another stop sign coming up. So we're gonna same thing here. We will ask ourselves same questions. What are the general errors and what are the critical errors? So as you're driving, pretty much every second you're asking yourself questions, you're answering your questions, and you're taking actions based on your past experience, based on your knowledge, and that's gonna really engage you with the process. And when you're engaged with the process, it's nearly impossible to fail your driving test. Let's say your examiner asks you to turn right on the next intersection. As you're approaching to the intersection, you will observe everything. So you're asking questions to yourself. How do I pass my driving test here? What are the general errors and what are the critical errors? So here we see a solid white line. That means you cannot change lane. And after that we have a railway crossing coming up. Then you ask yourself, okay, what should I do on a railway crossing? By the rules on a railway crossing, you physically have to move your head and look both ways. You can also cover your brake, so you slow down a little bit. Now we have a right turn coming up. So what are the general errors here and what are the critical errors? The general errors will be if you don't put the right signal on. That's gonna be a minor mistake. The other minor mistake would be if you're too far from the right curb. Lot of time from my experience, I notice when students are driving, they start checking on the left side too soon and they don't focus on their car, and the car will start to drift to the left side here. So you have to stay closer to the right side, and when you're in the middle of this triangle here or before the exit line, that's when you check on the left side. Then you ask yourself, what are the critical errors in this turn? Critical errors would be if there is a pedestrian on the sidewalk. If you don't stop for pedestrian, that will be a critical error. If you're going too close to this traffic here, to this car here, that will be a critical error as well, because your examiner doesn't know if you're going to stop there or if you're not going to stop, especially if you're taking your test in winter time on icy roads. And the other critical error would be this. Now this is a yield, so if there is a traffic coming from the left side and if you don't stop for the traffic, that will be a critical error. So let's move. So there was no one on the sidewalk, so now we see a yield sign. So here you will check on the left side and make sure the lane is clear before you continue. So what are the critical errors here? If there is a traffic coming from this side here, if you don't stop for the traffic, that will be a critical error. Now what else? Let's say if the intersection is totally empty and if you stop without any reason, that will be a critical error as well. So you're always asking questions to yourself as you're approaching to that intersection, and based on your experience, your past knowledge and everything, you do your best to answer those questions and you take actions to pass your driving test the first time. So after that, as you are going to, before you exit from the yield, then you ask yourself another question: which lane should I go in? Now by the rules, you're supposed to go in the closest lane. If you go in the middle lane or in the far lane, that will be a critical error as well. After your turns, then you look for a speed limit sign. So far on this street here, there was no speed limit sign, but now we see a speed limit sign on the right hand side at 60 kilometers. Then you remind yourself that I need to stay between 50 and 60 kilometers. If I go over the speed limit sign, that's gonna be a critical error. And if I'm driving too slow without any reason, road condition is good, traffic is good, and if I'm only doing in 60 zone, if I'm only doing about 30 kilometers, 35 or 40 kilometers, that will be a critical error. And you're also maintaining distance from the other cars. So you're always asking question every second as you're driving. You're encountering new situations, you're going through different situations. You're asking yourself, how do I pass my test here? What are the critical, what are the general? So for example, on this in this situation here, now we have this blue truck trying to make a U-turn, or maybe he's going into this parking lot, we don't know, but you still want to be cautious because here we get the right of way, so we don't slow down for this truck unless he's already right in front of you. Okay, but if he's just waiting on the side here, we don't slow down, we will maintain our speed. If we start slowing down, we are blocking all the traffic behind us, we are interfering with the traffic that's behind us, and that can result in critical error. So these are the things, this is your thinking process, and you always want to put that thinking cap, and as you're driving, ask yourself all these questions, answer your questions, and that's gonna get your license. You will pass the very first time. So let's look at this example. So your examiner asks you to make a left turn at the traffic light. As you're driving towards the intersection, you're asking questions, you're answering questions. So first of all, you come into this left turning lane, you want to stay closer to the divider here within 3 feet, and then you look at the traffic light. If the light is green, then you know that you have to establish if there is a oncoming traffic. But now as soon as the traffic clears and there's no pedestrian crossing, so that means you are good to go. So you don't want to, like, if you stop here in the intersection without any reason, that will be a critical error. And when you're turning, you would just imagine you will find the center of the street and you will stay on the right side closer to the center of the street. Now your examiner asks you to do a left Bulova turn. Now this one is a little bit tricky. So here we have a stop sign, but the cross traffic does not stop. So same idea here, as you are driving towards the intersection, you are asking questions to yourself, what are the general errors here? What are the critical errors here? How do I pass my test on this left turn? So you will make a full stop before the sidewalk here because there's no stop line, and you're staying, because you're turning left, you will stay closer to the center of the street. So in this example here, this black line, we can imagine that as a yellow line, and we will stay closer to the center of the street. And then the first thing that you check is the pedestrians on the sidewalk. If there's no one, no cyclist, no pedestrian on the sidewalk, then you can roll forward. And then you ask yourself, okay, when do I go in the intersection? Now from your driving lessons, from your past experience, you know if there's any car turning left right in front of you, like this one here, they get the right of way. If you try to go before them, that will be an automatic fail and you won't pass your driving test. So in this example here, we're just gonna roll forward a little bit, we wait for the traffic to clear, then we check on the left hand side. Left hand side looks pretty good. Before we go in the intersection, we check on the right hand side again, make sure the right hand side is clear. And when the right hand side is clear, then you also check pedestrians. So in this case we have pedestrian crossings, and now we roll forward. We are checking again on the left hand side. Left hand side looks clear, we are going. As you're driving in the intersection, you're checking on the right hand side, and then you ask yourself, now where exactly do I go in the intersection? Do I go on the left side of the intersection, do I go in the middle, or do I go on the right hand side of the intersection? In Manitoba, if you go on the right hand side of the intersection, if you establish on the right hand side of the intersection, that's also automatic fail. So for left turns, you always stay on the left hand side of the intersection, and if you have a traffic coming from the right, then you can stop here again. Now make sure the front end of your car, it does not block this lane here, otherwise that will be a critical error. So you have to ask yourself all these questions, and you answer your questions based on your experience, your knowledge, and this way you are engaged with the process. And when you're engaged with the process, you're not thinking about the end results, you're focusing more on your driving. And when you focus on your driving, you're focusing on the road, and when you focus on the road, there will be no general errors, there will be no critical errors, and you will pass your driving test without any problem.